Johnson, South Dakota's only representative in the U.S. House, visited Yankton High School this afternoon to talk with students.
That's right. He spoke for a few minutes and then opened the floor up to students to ask their questions. Questions today ranged from anything from the U.S.-Mexico border and teacher pay to agriculture. There were some things that Representative Johnson said not everyone would agree with, but he did want the students to walk away with knowledge from his talk.
Politics these days is so mean, it's so toxic, and it does not have to be that way. Yes, I have strongly held opinions about how we should be running this country, but what we need to do is to create an environment where we can talk about these issues. The students and I can talk about things like the southern border, like the budget deficit, in a way that tries to solve problems rather than just burns the whole gosh darn thing down.
Congressman Johnson also talked about TikTok and what a ban would mean for the social media app.
What we want to do is have TikTok decoupled from the Chinese Communist Party. Our bill would just require TikTok to sell to anybody else.
After the high school visit, Representative Dusty Johnson went to a pinning ceremony for veterans.